rally is beginning as we speak outside the federal courthouse in St. Paul. It follows tense clashes this afternoon and a growing protest. This after the U.S. Attorney's Office federally charged more than a dozen people now accused of interfering with immigration enforcement this winter. 12 of the 15 suspects are accused of having ties to the group Direct Action Minnesota, and they made their first appearance in court this afternoon. 2 are still at large, and 1 was already in custody on other federal charges.
Investigators say the alleged acts were designed to create chaos, disrupt operations, and threaten officer and community safety. All 15 are charged with conspiracy to impede or injure a federal officer, but some do face additional charges, which you see here on your screen. We have team coverage tonight, beginning with Heidi Wigdahl breaking down the indictments. Heidi?
Lauren and Kevin, this morning reports started coming out, including from Minneapolis City Council member Jason Chavez, saying federal agents had been seen across the city arresting people. We're told all 15 defendants are from the Twin Cities.
15 Minnesotans face federal charges of conspiracy to impede or injure a federal officer.
These defendants have been charged not for what they said, but for what they did. They all joined an agreement, a conspiracy, to interfere with lawful immigration enforcement operations.
U.S. Attorney Daniel Rosen claims the defendants are members and associates of Direct Action Minnesota. In the 94-page indictment, a majority of it includes correspondence between defendants through Signal or on social media. It also details setting up blockades around the Whipple building, a defendant following an agent from the Whipple building to their home in Hudson, and people throwing blocks of ice at agents' vehicles, although it does not name someone specifically in that incident. Some defendants are facing multiple charges, including Kyle Wagner, who was arrested back in February.
There's nothing fun to chant about it. Get your guns and stop these people.
Rosen would not answer any questions on if any federal agents had been injured in these incidents.
We just cannot have in this country all people getting together, engaging in all of these violent acts, and then simply saying, well, you know, nobody got hurt, so how bad could it have been?
No hate! No fear!
But protesters outside the U.S. Attorney's Office say the charges are furthering a false narrative. Dan Tricoli with the Minneapolis Federation of Educators says his friend, a teacher, was charged.
We were all defending our schools, making sure ICE didn't show up there and terrorizing our students.
Bruce Nestor was the attorney for a previous round of federal charges related to Operation Metro Surge against different defendants back in January.
We had judges that at least stood up to the false charges. Over half of those charges have already been dismissed outright. They were based on lies. They were based on false information.
When Rosen was asked why this case is different,
you watch how this case plays out, you watch how the evidence plays out, and the evidence will prove it all out.
Rosen described Direct Action Minnesota and some other subgroups mentioned in the indictment as Antifa, which is short for anti-fascism. We get more into the meaning and history behind the word coming up on Breaking the News tonight. Lauren.
All right, Heidi, thank you.
There's a lot happening in the federal courthouse right now, with large crowds gathering and protesting as those charged went before a judge for the first time. Ryan Catania continues our team coverage with developments from in and outside the courtroom. Ryan.
There's a big showing of solidarity and support for the defendants outside the courthouse here in St. Paul this afternoon, though there were also some moments of confrontation between some of these protesters and law enforcement earlier. Take a look at this video. At one point, U.S. Marshals used a chemical irritant on people who were attempting to keep the courthouse doors open. The courtroom itself was also packed with family, friends, and supporters of those defendants. Today's hearings are largely procedural, with the defendants appearing before a judge for the very first time. 12 of the 15 defendants did appear in court this afternoon, and prosecutors with the U.S. government wanted to keep the defendants in detention, but the judge ruled that it's not necessary because they're not flight risks and there's nothing to suggest they would interfere with the court proceedings. So here's what some of their attorneys had to say about what we've seen here today.
When we're sitting in court, we're getting text messages and emails where they're saying, hey, people are getting sprayed in the face, and they're spraying at close range. That is completely unnecessary.
Now, the judge said that moving forward, these defendants will not be allowed to communicate with one another, and they're also not allowed to protest on federal property. So this gathering here that you can see outside the federal courthouse, none of those defendants are able to participate in what's going on here outside. Back to you guys.
Ryan, thank you.